We are now on Chapter 8, Macros, Navigation Forms, and Control Layouts. So we will be doing a little more strange stuff here, but that's okay. The macros are very interesting. The main thing is just to be calm, look for what you need, and be calm. Alright, so if you turn to page 477, it tells you to open up Bavant Publishing. And once again, you can tell that I've opened up my Chapter 7 Bavant and I changed it to Chapter 8, or saved it as Chapter 8 so that I have another copy in case something crazy goes wrong. And then on page 478, it says to go ahead and close the navigation pane. So if yours is open, close it. Click on the Create tab and we're going to begin making a macro. So the first thing you want to do is slide down to Macros and Code and click on Macro. Alright, now you notice over here you get the action catalog that we used a little bit in the last chapter. And if yours isn't showing, all you have to do is click on this action catalog button here. Notice that turns it off and on. It just toggles it off and on. So make sure that yours is on. Now, kind of put your finger in page 479 because we'll be flipping back to that chart here in a little bit. And for now, turn to page 480. And the first thing it wants us to do is double click the SubMacro element. So you go to the Action Catalog, slide down to SubMacro. Notice that the SubMacro is part of the program flow. So if your program flow looks like that, you won't be able to see it. So you need to click on the arrow and it will expand that, and now you have SubMacro. So double click on that and that gives us a SubMacro over here. And the first thing we want to do is call it Open Rep Seminar Data. So Open Rep Seminar Data. So that is what this macro will do. Now on page 481, number 2 says click the expand indicator for the database objects. So we slide down to our actions and go to database objects, the third one down. And this is going to allow us to tell it what we want it to do. So we wanted to open a form, so we slide down to Open Form and double click. And notice that we still have our name, but we have an Open Form section here. Now, if you look at number 3 on page 481, it says click on the drop down arrow for the form name argument. So here we have form name and we click on the drop down arrow. Now it gives us a list of all of the forms that we have created in this database. The form we want to use is Rep Seminar Data. So we slide down to Rep Seminar Data. And that kind of makes sense because we're telling it to open the Rep Seminar Data form, right? And this is the Open Form macro. And all we have to do is plug in the information. Now, the view in this case, it says Data Mode Argument. So we're going to slide down to Data Mode. We'll do View later. Data Mode, if we click in here, here is our down arrow. And we want to choose Read Only. Now, Read Only means that whoever uses this form will be able to add new records, but they will not be able to edit any existing records. Alright, so if you're designing this database for somebody to input records and you don't want them to mess with any of your other stuff, this is the perfect thing to choose, Read Only. Alrighty then, and that's all we have to do with that. And we're going to hit Save. And we're going to name this Forms and Reports. Forms and Reports. And say OK. Alrighty, and notice now it says Forms and Reports up here. and turn the page. Now we're going to add some more actions to this macro. So we want to point to the minus sign in front of the open form. And what that will do is collapse that so that all we see is this basic information. And just for your information, FYI, this arrow allows you to move it up, which we don't want to do, but if you ever stick it in the wrong place, that's the thing you want to do. And then the X, of course, will delete it. If you've really made a mess and it's easier to start over, that's what you would do. Alrighty then. So we want to collapse this action, which is what we have done. Then we go down to number 2. And it says double click the sub macro element again. So we'll double click it. And notice that it did an end sub macro for us immediately. That applies to this one here, and now we have another sub macro, and they automatically name it sub 2, and we are going to call it open book rep master form. Open book rep master form, and make sure you spell everything right because everybody will be able to see this. And you do want to look professional. So we're going to go back over here to our database objects, and we will choose open form. So double click, and notice now that we have our open form. We get to tell it that we want to open up the customer master form. So click on the down arrow and form name, and we're going to choose customer master form. Now, if you're missing a form, that means that you've missed something somewhere. So you need to find out what chapter we did the form in and get the form completed, and then come back to here. Alrighty then. Customer master form. Oop, I lied. Book rep master form. Book rep master form. That's why we read the book instead of pictures. And then we want to add the open customer master form SubMacro. So what we need to do is we'll come over here and we want to add a SubMacro. We're going to do the same thing we've been doing. Add a SubMacro, and we're going to call this customer open customer master form. So we'll call this open customer master, and they don't give you a lot of information in the directions. Open customer master form, and it wants us to do an open form action for this also, so we'll double click open form. Alright, and the form name is going to be customer master form. Alright, and that's all we have to do with that one also. So for each of these 3 macros, we want to collapse them. So let's make sure each sub macro is collapsed. Voila. Alright, so each one is collapsed. And now we want to add a sub macro named preview, and I'm on page 483. So we're going to add another sub macro, double click, we're going to name it preview book rep master list. Alright, then we want to do an open report action. So we'll slide down here, open report. Ooh. Need to have a capital P. These have to be pretty or professional, depending on how you want to say that. Double click open report. So now we have open report. Choose book rep master list as the report name that we're going to open. Alright, and now we're going to select print preview. Right now we have a view as report, and instead of viewing as report, we're going to choose print preview. So we'll click on the down arrow and choose print preview. So this is the first time we've changed the view. Number 4 on page 483 says collapse the preview book rip master list. So we're going to collapse that, and there we go. And then we want to add another SubMacro. So double click SubMacro, and this one is going to be called Preview Customer Financial Report. So Preview Customer Financial Report. And that is on the second dot of number 4 of page 483. Then it says include the action described in, and that's where I told you to stick your finger in the page to hold the spot. So we're going to flip over to page 479, look at Preview Customer Financial Report, and we want to do an open report macro. Do you see where it says action? So it's going to be an open report. Alright, and the report name is going to be customer, and that's on the third column in that table. Customer Financial Report. So click on that. The view is going to be print preview, so we'll click on report, click on the down arrow, and choose print preview. Alright, and that looks like all we have to do to that. Then flip back over to page 483. Keep holding that spot because we'll be going back and forth. So now it says collapse the preview customer financial report. Alright, and then it wants us to collapse, let's see, then it wants us to add the preview discount report macro. So we're going to add another SubMacro. The directions kind of jump around. Preview discount report SubMacro. And this is the third bullet point on number 4. The preview discount report SubMacro. And flip back to page 479, and the preview is going to be an open report, and the report name is going to be discount report. There you go. And notice that this time I just typed the D and it showed up. You can do that, or you can click on the down arrow and click on it there. Whatever makes you happy. So for the preview discount report, the view is going to be print preview. So click on the down arrow, print preview, and we are good there. So now we're going to flip back and collapse the preview customer financial report. And mine's already collapsed. And the preview discount report, so we're going to collapse that one. And then it says collapse the database objects category. That's over here in your actions catalog. Alright. And expand the data import export category. So that's the one above. Click on that, and now you have some different actions. We're going to create another SubMacro, so double click SubMacro. And this is going to be called Export Book Rip Master List. Export Book Rip Master. Alright. The next bullet down says add the export with formatting action. So it's going to export it exactly the way it looks. And we're going to choose the drop down arrow for the object type. And this is going to be, turn the page, a report. So click on the down arrow and choose report. Alright. Now click on the drop down arrow for the object name argument. So we're going to click on this next down arrow. And it says select book rip master list. So we're going to choose that for our object name. And then click on the down arrow for output format. So here's output format. So slide to the down arrow. All right. And we're going to choose PDF. Now, PDF format is excellent because no matter what a person's computer, what type font, what type colors, what type settings on their monitor, it doesn't matter. It's going to look exactly the same as yours because of the PDF format. And people who don't have access and don't have Adobe Publisher Professional, everybody can read a PDF. If they aren't able to read a PDF, there's free download on the internet that takes a second. So this is a great universal format to choose. All right. And then we're going to add number 6, add the Export Customer Financial Report SubMacro. So another SubMacro. And this one is going to be called Export Customer Financial Report. And this one is also on page 8 page 479. So we'll flip back to our page 479 again, and we want Export Customer Financial Report, and we're going to choose Export with Formatting, and the object type is a report. I'm thinking we could have just stayed on this table the whole time. Object name is Customer Financial Report. Output format is PDF, but there you go. Alrighty then, turn the page back to page 484, and it says include the action described in 8.1, select the customer financial report. I think it's fixing to tell us to do everything we just did. So on page 485, the second bullet, add the Export Discount Report SubMacro. So double click SubMacro, and this one is going to be Export Discount Report. So Export Discount Report. Alright, and if we need then we're going to have to export with formatting, and they're not telling us now, but that's okay. We don't really need them to. And I'm thinking if we flip back to page 479, they give us more information, and we're on Export Discount Report. That's the last one. Export with formatting is the action. Object type is still report. I'm thinking we should just stay on this page. Object name is discount report. And output type is format is PDF. Alrighty then. And I'm thinking we're done with that place marker, so you can lose that page now. And it says to save the macro. So we're going to save and then close the macro by clicking on its close button, this X, close forms and reports. Alright, now we have created a macro called forms and reports, and you can see that down here at the very bottom, forms and reports, and it's under the macros. Most excellent, and I'm sure you did fabulous, and we're going to stop there and take a little break.